Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest here in Central Europe. I hope everybody is having a great weekend so far, staying healthy, staying strong, positive, and productive. This class is a questions and answers session, hopefully to get those high band scores on the IELTS exam. And it is specifically for members. Once every couple of weeks, we host this kind of class for our channel members to be able to ask any questions about the IELTS exam, English, our products, so that we can give them guidance to better learning. Hi, David. Hi, Carolina. There's some of our members joining in now. Welcome to the class. This lesson is presented to you, as usual, by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS success, please visit us there. And for the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. We have lots and lots and lots of great materials for you on our websites. Welcome, Pavan, Moni, Jyotishman. Nice to see so many members coming into the class. I'm just going to darken up the screen here for a moment and show you a couple of resources, members, on the website that some of you might not be familiar with. So I've become a shadow or a silhouette momentarily. So this is aehelp.com here with the blue background. And you can join the premium package by clicking this big red button here. Once you do that, you'll have a My Student account. And when you log into your My Student account, you can create a My Student account for free as well, of course. And once you have that, you have access to a lot of resources. So, of course, you have your computer-based practice exams, your online interactive course, you have practice tests, workbook, lesson videos, lots and lots of materials there for you, several hundred hours of learning. And as well, you have this part of the website here, which are the forums where you can ask us questions and also discuss with other students. And then you have blogs where you have lots and lots of information. And I want to show you that because we've been uploading a lot of new blogs these past months. How many of you members have been checking out the blogs regularly to see the most recent blogs that we've been putting up, like Task 2, Task 1, and lots of others? So Moni says, me, that's great. Yeah, so we're putting lots and lots of information up there. So here you can always see the titles. This one was put up November 13th, so just yesterday. And it was the IELTS Speaking Part 3 Band 9 Strategy, Popular Software. You can click on that to read more. And then here you have a sample script for speaking with questions, answers, and advice. Okay, and then you have lots and lots more blogs like this with Speaking Part 2, Part 1, Writing Task 2, Task 1. So lots and lots. Okay. Abhishek says once a week. Janil says me. That's fantastic. I'm happy to hear that. So members, make sure to check out those blogs on the website. Okay. Just wanted to kind of show you that. For general IELTS students, it's the green background. Click the big red button there, gieltshelp.com. Of course, there's lots of blogs and help there for you as well. That's great. Okay, so I'm happy to hear that some members are looking at that. And you can always comment on those blogs or ask questions. We do see that, and we can get back to you. Okay, so it's a very useful resource for people and for students preparing for the IELTS exam. Okay, let me brighten up our day here so you can make out my face a little bit better. There I am. All right. David says, I'm currently doing one daily mock test for listening and reading. My test is on the 5th of December. Do you think this is good? I've felt exhausted. Okay, let me get back to you on that, David. So, yeah, so just real quickly, if anybody ever has questions, Adrian at aehelp.com, you can shoot me an email and I will help you out. Okay. So again, this is a question and answer class for students, and I see some students are already, some of our members are already asking some questions. So I'm going to get to those. Yeah, so members, think about your questions. You can ask me whatever comes to your mind regarding the IELTS, regarding English, and I will do my best to help you. I'll take the questions in the order that they come, unless there is some connection among the questions that I see. Then, of course, I'll organize my answers logically. So I'm going to go back to the first one. I think Pavan was asking a question. Let me just check, Pavan, if there's nobody before you. So Pavan says, can you please explain to me how to write the conclusion in detail, all the parts? Yeah, so conclusion, sure. What is a conclusion? Okay, yeah, I'll explain that. I mean, it's in several of the videos, Pavan, and especially on the website. Again, in your full course, there are quite a bit of instructions on the conclusion. So just so we're clear, Pavan, it's a big question to ask, like, what's a good conclusion? Okay, or how do I write a conclusion? So a conclusion has 3 parts. Okay, the first part of a conclusion should restate the points of the essay clearly. Okay, so number 1, restate. I don't know why that's capitalizing for me. Restate the main points, usually the thesis points of the essay clearly. Okay. The second step is strengthen your argument. Okay. And the third is give a take-home message. Okay. So simply put, Pavan, this is what's included in a standard conclusion. Now, conclusions, once you really get into good literature, they can vary a fair bit. And of course, this is a conclusion to persuasive writing. Narrative writing would have different concepts. So you restate the main points, right? So let's kind of take the task 2, Pavan, that we looked at this week. So in conclusion, people give money as gifts because it is a quick and simple solution, but this does not justify the intent of building relationships. Okay, so this would be my first part here, Pavan, because I'm restating the points of my thesis. Remember that the point 1 of my thesis was that it's convenient. So another way to say convenient is quick and easy, or quick and simple. Okay. And then I said, well, it lacks sentimental value, or it doesn't truly show caring for the person that we give the money to as a gift. Not like other gifts where we thought about it more and we invested the effort to go and purchase that gift. So here I say it does not justify the intent of building relationships. So this is another way to state my point that that it doesn't really work to show sentimental value. Okay, so this would be my part 1 of the conclusion. Okay, and this is where it's really important to remember a few points that the conclusion is not, but I'll go through those in a second, Pavan. And then part 2 is strengthening the argument. Therefore, I strongly feel that giving cash for special occasions is negative practice. Okay, so this is my part 2 here, Pavan. Therefore, I strongly feel that giving cash for special occasions is a negative practice. Now, notice how here I've added the word strongly. In the conclusion, you can use words which are stronger than the introduction, because in the conclusion of task 2, you have already guided the reader through your essay and through your argument. So by the time you reach your conclusion in your writing, you're basically thinking that the reader either agrees with what you have said or they don't. And if they do agree with what you have said, then you really want to drive home the point. You really want to emphasize your position in your conclusion. If not, then whatever, they're not going to agree with you, right? Maybe you've failed to convince them, right? So that's what the rest of the essay is for. And then part 3 is your take-home message, okay? And here we could say to the person, therefore, it is always a good idea to take the extra step and transform the money gift into a more sentimental object or experience that the receiver can cherish for a lifetime. Okay, and notice members that I watched this week's classes that I'm now typing a conclusion that's very different from the conclusion that I typed yesterday. And again, I'm just doing it seamlessly. So I didn't prepare this. Obviously, I didn't know that Pavan would ask me this question. But because I know what I need to put into the conclusion and I visualize the situation, I can come up with multiple conclusions that have the same structure, satisfy the essay, but have different information, okay? So here, Pavan, what I'm doing is I'm basically giving a message to the reader. And this is very important because whenever we read an article, we want to get some kind of a value from that article. So we appreciate and value articles that give us information that's useful in our life. When we read an article that seems very distant, where it doesn't seem to have any kind of utility, then it's kind of like, okay, I wasted 10 minutes of my life reading that because it's just useless for me. So it's kind of like high school algebra, right? When am I going to use sine and cosine and tangent in my real life experiences? And I think that's where math teachers should maybe put a little bit more effort to show students where they can use that in real life. And maybe students will find that more interesting and hold on to it more. Mind you, there are some math teachers that do a good job of this, so hats off to those teachers. Okay, so this is, again, part 1, your points. Part 2, your argument strengthened with strong words, okay? You shouldn't use words like maybe, okay? So I'll give you a couple points about what not to do in the conclusion, okay? The big don'ts in a conclusion. Okay, and this is very important. These are common mistakes. So number 1, do not simply repeat your introduction. Okay, some students get this idea, maybe some wrong information from teachers, that your conclusion is just a paraphrase of the introduction. No, it's not. You're concluding. So you're summarizing not only the information, but you're giving content and value for the reader. So it's more than just your introduction. So don't just simply repeat the introduction. Okay. Number 2, for your conclusion, do not use weak language. Like, for example, maybe. Okay. Or perhaps. Or could be or should be. Those are common ones that I see students using. Could be, should be. Okay, so conclusions should always be strong. Okay, they need to be strong. All right, so the big don'ts in conclusions: don't simply repeat your introduction. Don't use weak language. And another very, very important one is do not introduce a new or novel idea that is not supported in your essay. Okay. University professors and college professors, they always take marks when students do that because it's really confusing for the reader. This is really confusing for the reader. And it breaks the logic of your essay. Okay, so those are the kind of the most common ones. All right. So that's the big ones for the conclusion. Again, to get more detail on that, you want to visit the websites. Okay. All right. So I kind of killed that question, but it's definitely important because I still do not see great conclusions. So I think it was a really good question to start because I definitely do think that there is a lack of good conclusions, Pavan, among IELTS candidates. So it'd be nice to see some better ones. Okay. All right. So, all right, Hassan, I see everybody's congratulating you there. So I'll take a moment. I'm not drinking wine or anything like that. I've got water here, but I'll toast to you. Cheers. I know it's not the most appropriate to cheers with water, but water it is, Hassan. Congratulations on your IELTS score. That's fantastic. So overall 7 means that you are a good user of the English language. Reading 7.5, listening 7, speaking 6.5, writing 6.5. That's fantastic. Hassan, by the way, another really nice point to make here about your marks is that you're very balanced, which is really nice to see. Okay, it's great that you have a good balance among your skills of listening, reading, writing, speaking. That will allow you to progress a lot faster in all parts of your communication. So it's nice to see that you don't have a great degree of variance. So you've really put in a good amount of effort into all 4 of those skills. Very nice. Good for you, Hassan. I'm proud of you. You've been a student of mine for a long time. And I see that you got your admission to Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. Okay. Keep working on your writing, Hassan. That's something that you can improve. Hassan, I definitely recommend spending some time looking at instructions from other experts on writing. Remember your writing fundamentals, Hassan, that you want to understand how to write effective descriptive writing, how to write effective expository, persuasive, and narrative writing. Okay, so look at each of those separately. Look at the voices of the author, look at the different categories, and then you can also get into some interesting facets, domains of writing, like literary devices, like using metaphors, hyperboles, oxymorons. Okay, I don't really get into those for teaching IELTS because I think it's a little bit too much. Students can get a nice high band score without a lot of information about literary devices per se, but that's definitely what you want to look at for the more advanced college, university level writing. So, but good job, Hassan. Okay. All right. So fantastic. Okay. I'm really happy about that, Hassan. Hassan, if you don't mind, send me an email because I'd love to get your testimonial. Okay, can you just give me a thumbs up on that if you got that from me? So I'd love to get your testimonial. So just send me an email and then I'll reply with some information. Okay. Thanks for saying that, Hassan. Yeah, a lot of students question, like, are the exams as difficult as what we show in the class? And I'm happy that you're saying that it is. Unfortunately, I think there are some materials out there on the web, and in classrooms that are a little bit too easy, and students get the wrong idea about the difficulty of the IELTS exam, and then they get really surprised. Okay, cool, Hassan, I see that. So I'll wait for your email. Thank you. All right, let me get to some other questions. It's nice to see that. I love success stories, students. That's really why we do it. We just love these success stories. So Hassan, it's really nice to see that you've succeeded. Okay, so David has a question here. Simply put, David, you're basically saying that your exam is coming up in roughly 3 weeks, a little bit less, right? So let's say this is David. David's saying, my exam is in a couple of weeks. I'm doing a mock test daily for listening and reading. And I'm exhausted. Is this a good approach? Yeah, and I think that's a nice question, David, because a lot of students do a similar kind of strategy. So a lot of students follow this strategy of mock test, mock test, mock test, mock test. It's not bad, but David, I don't necessarily think it's the only exercise that you should be doing, or I don't think that you should stress too much about doing this one particular exercise. So my answer here, David, is it's a good idea to do lots of mock tests before your IELTS exam, especially when you're nearing the test date. Okay, but you should always review, identify, and revise as you do these tests. Okay, so what I mean by this, David, is that students sometimes just do a test and another test, and they look at their scores and they look at their scores and they go, okay, I'm kind of improving or not so improving, or I did better yesterday, I'm doing worse today. And that can be really frustrating and disappointing, and it's not really effective. What you need to do, David, is every single time you do a listening or a reading test, you need to stop and you need to look at the questions that you got wrong. Identify why you got them wrong. Identify the words that maybe you didn't understand or the grammar. Then write those words out. Add them to your vocabulary list. Write some example sentences. Immediately put them into use in your speaking. Okay? Even many students who take a few more minutes to identify their mistakes and think about why they got their mistakes, they stop there. And then they don't take another step to actually learn from those mistakes and practice the missing information. Okay, so that's what's really important. So to put this into quantitative information, whenever you do, or whenever you, let's say, read a passage and answer the questions, okay, in 20 minutes, you should spend about another 30 to 40 minutes after identifying your mistakes, writing out new vocabulary, using new grammar, which led to your mistakes, and then putting them into use by speaking a few sentences on your phone, recording them, right? As well as writing some sample sentences. Okay, so that's what I mean. A lot of students do not spend nearly enough time reviewing, revising, and then practicing. Okay, so is that clear, David? And then you shouldn't feel as exhausted either, right? So if you slow yourself down, take a break, have a tea, go back to it, identify the mistakes. So in just like in the actual IELTS, David, in the learning process as well, it's the turtle that wins the race, not the rabbit, not the hare. Okay, so you want to be that slow and steady turtle. The turtle seems like it's slow in the beginning, and the turtle seems like it's going to lose the race, but ironically, it's the turtle that always wins the race. Okay, so the big races in life and in history are always won by the turtle. Very, very rarely, if ever, are they won by the rabbit. That's true for quality relationships between husband and wife, child and parent, between professionals who achieve great feats in life, like Isaac Newton. It's persistence. It's a steady, planned persistence. Okay? So, all right, David says absolutely. Good, David. Okay, cool. So review, revise. Okay, that's my emphasis for your question, David. Okay, let's see some more questions. Okay. So who's after? Okay, Abhishek says, Sir, what kinds of books and articles should we read to improve our IELTS scores? Okay, Abhishek, question back at you. Are we talking about the general or the academic IELTS? A little bit different, the content, right? So I'll have two answers for you here real quick. Okay, so Abhishek says, I'm going to go with Abhi. Okay. Says, what kinds of materials should, or let's not say materials is a better word for that, literature, should I read to improve my scores, IELTS scores? Okay, Abhi, I've got some answers for you. First and foremost, can anybody tell me what I'm about to write here? So what's the most important point to consider when you're choosing literature to read to improve your IELTS scores? And this is true for general or for academic. What do you think it is? I've said this before in classes, and I've given this advice to many students, maybe in email as well. What's the single most important concept to keep in mind when you're choosing literature to improve your knowledge, your thinking, your scores on the IELTS? I'll give you a hint. It's not a specific topic like science, or it's not a specific domain like science, or it's not a specific media like newspapers. It's something simple but very important. What do you think it is? So when you go to a bookstore or when you're surfing the net, yeah, very good, Hassan. Absolutely. Hassan's nailed it on the head. Yeah, absolutely. So you have to be interested in it, okay? If you're reading materials that you find boring or uninteresting and you're just trying to force yourself to read it because you're hoping that's going to improve your IELTS score, you're definitely barking up the wrong tree. So you're headed in the wrong direction, okay? The brain functions always best when it engages materials and information that it's interested in, okay? You should always read information that interests you, okay? Whether that's a scientific topic or a fantasy story, it doesn't matter, okay? I always really feel empathetic for students who are suffering through reading uninteresting materials. Now, that doesn't mean, that everything you read will be like, wow, this is the most incredible information in the world. But you can make yourself interested. So find interest, okay? Convince yourself when you're reading something that it's possibly interesting as long as you give it the chance, okay? So number 2, Abhi, is read both long and short text, novels and articles. Okay, that's another important one. So oftentimes IELTS students read either just short articles like IELTS passages, or some students will just read books and then that's it. I think you should do a combination of both. So you should read a novel that interests you, that's an interesting story for you, a biography, a story out of history, a fantasy novel, whatever tickles your fancy, as they say. And you should be reading shorter articles as well. Okay, all right. So read both long and short text, and reading is something that we don't do enough of anyways these days. So I highly, highly recommend it. So both long and short text, and eventually, Abhi, the other thing that you want to focus on is read from grade 10 level and up. So it depends, of course, on your English level, but you should be reading materials that students read in grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 in high schools in the US, in Canada, okay? So along with that, I have a kind of an interesting suggestion for you here is search online for textbooks for high school, textbooks used in UK, US, Canada, Australia. I'm sure you'll find some. You might even find some hard copies online. Amazon bookstore is a great place to search for these, okay? So search for high school textbooks used in the UK, USA, Canada, Australia online, like biology, earth sciences, physics, chemistry. Okay, because a lot of the material, or a lot of the materials, especially in the academic IELTS, okay, are synonymous with this. Right? And these books are organized quite nicely. So usually they have like chapter summaries. Pay attention to those, okay? If you find these books, or when you find these books, pay attention to the chapter summaries. All right, this is kind of a special little trick or tip, if you will, that I'm giving you here. So pay attention to chapter summaries, where the books emphasize key vocabulary and concepts. Okay, all right. So that's really good, especially for those of you who are taking the academic IELTS. Okay, general IELTS pamphlets, brochures, information articles about resorts, or instructional manuals. So for general IELTS, you can read books like Dummy's Guide and Idiot's Guide. Can be good to read, okay? So for general IELTS, instructional books are good to read, like the Idiots and Dummies series. Does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say Idiots and Dummies series? Those are quite well known. They're these yellow books. Like, for example, how to invest in stocks, or how to garden, Okay. So anybody familiar with those? The dummies books? Gardening for Dummies. They're these kinds of titles, or stock investing for dummies, or using Microsoft for dummies. That kind of a series. Hassan says, "I know the dummies series." Yeah, they're very well structured and well written, and they have a lot of instructional content that can be quite similar to the general IELTS kind of writing style as well. So, and again, pick one that's interesting for you. So if you're like, oh, I've always been interested in building my own garden, look up Gardening for Dummies and read through it. And I'm sure you'll find a lot of vocabulary and interesting information, and you'll learn English. And those books are available just about everywhere. So it's a good idea, okay? All right. So hopefully, Abhishek, that gives you some ideas of where to start and what to do, okay? All right. Let's take a look at some more questions. Lubna, I'll get there in a moment, okay? Let me see who's coming after this question by Abhi. Okay. All right, David, I've already answered one of your answers, so I'm going to skip yours for now, okay, just to kind of be fair and look for some others as well, so I can, okay. So Lubna says, I have one doubt: if I miss a punctuation mark like commas and semicolons, or if I place them wrongly, does it affect my marks? Yeah, it does, Lubna, absolutely. So so Lubna's asking, does punctuation affect my marks? Yes, Lubna. There's an article online called "The $5 Million Comma." I recommend searching it. It's a Canadian situation where the lawyer put the comma in the wrong place, and because of that, the company lost $5 million in the court, because another company sued them and said, hey guys, this contract is incorrect, and you should have been paying us for the last 5 years for using our infrastructure, and you haven't been. And they said, well, no, that wasn't the contract. That's not what we agreed on. And the company says, yes, it is. We can prove it. And they did, because the comma was in the wrong spot and the interpretation. And even though everybody knew that this was kind of unfair, the judge had no option but to rule in favor of the company that was suing for that money, or that wanted the $5 million, because the judge said that, hey, if I disagree with the basic rules of the English language, then we're going to have court cases up to our necks for the next 100 years, because then everybody will be trying to argue. So I have to side with the rules of the English language. And even though we know it's unfair and that's not what you guys agreed on, you have to pay the $5 million. So the rules of punctuation are in many ways, and this is kind of tricky, I hate saying this, but in many ways are written in stone. So yes, Lubna, punctuation matters a lot. So does punctuation affect my marks? Yes. Bad punctuation can definitely cost marks on the IELTS exam. And British people specifically are very, or maybe even more, generally speaking, more specific about punctuation, because they're the home of the English language, so they're very keen on making sure that it's kept nice and accurate. One common kind of punctuation mistake that I see, students, is when somebody writes a sentence like, I have visited Japan, and during my time there, I made some new friends. Okay, so Lubna, even here, so here the commas are in a correct place, but notice how I have a space before and after the comma, and here I have a space before and after the comma. I've noticed that some students make this mistake where they put spaces in an incorrect place with the punctuation. Even that's considered a mistake. Okay, so punctuation rules are for the most part very specific. Okay, and you can't make mistakes like that. If you put an unnecessary space before the comma or before the period, and you do that several times in your essay, you will lose band scores in your writing for that. Okay, so the examiner will, or the marker will say that that's bad writing. Okay, so there's no space there. So if you're not sure about punctuation, do the research, do the practice, and improve your punctuation. Okay? All right. So, all right. Yeah, so Janiel says, interesting story. Yeah, if you're a lawyer, you definitely want to know your punctuation. Okay? All right. All right, so let me just, I see lots of questions, students. It's fine. I'm going to try to get to a couple more here. Let's see who's coming up after Lubna. So, yeah, and in professional life, definitely careful with punctuation. Okay, Moni says, although my purpose of taking IELTS is to migrate with a work visa, I need to clear academic IELTS with a band 7 or above. I don't know the reason why. Yeah, Moni, that's a good question. So basically, Moni's asking, like, why do I... Okay, yeah. So yeah, Moni, it's a tricky one, all right, but I'm going to answer that one for you. So Moni says, although I need IELTS for migration or immigration, let's say that. You emigrate out of your country, you immigrate into another country, you migrate between the countries, but the idea here is that you need it for immigration. I'm required to do the academic and get a band score of 7 or more. All right, students, the answer, Moni, the answer here is depending on your situation. So it could be because you're looking for a work visa, or because you're being sponsored by a company or employment. It could be that you are being fast-tracked. So there are different types of immigration systems. I know that Canada has quite a few different kinds of ways that you can enter Canada, and some people want to do what's called a fast-track visa, which requires a band 7, I think, in listening, reading, writing, and a band 8 in speaking. Okay, so there is no rule that only general IELTS is used for immigration. Okay, the academic IELTS, because it's, of course, using more professional language, it makes sense that if somebody is applying for a work visa and they need to show English proficiency, it often makes more sense to require the academic IELTS, because the government is basically saying, hey, if you're coming here to work, you need to show to us that you're able to function in the native official language of the country in a work environment. So you're not just simply here to slowly kind of melt into the culture, but you're here to start work right away. So the answer here is always double check, double, triple, double with an E, with an L. Check your visa requirements, as these can be very specific, very extensively, and change from time to time. Okay, so different versions, or either the academic with different scores are needed. Okay, so when I first started teaching IELTS, it was honestly a lot more relaxed. So for immigration visas, most people could get immigration entry with general IELTS band 5. But those are the good old days. These days, basically no country, I believe, will accept a band 5 for a primary applicant because it's simply not good enough anymore. So the speed of life and the level of competition among people in the world using English has increased so much that it's increased by a good band score when it comes to the IELTS. So that's life. The more of us there are, the more we want kind of the same goals, the more competitive it becomes. So Moni, you have to check with your specific application type, but it's likely that it's because it's a work visa. It might be because it's a faster road to getting the visa that you're required to do the academic. Okay. Yeah, Moni, we do have a punctuation lesson on the blog, absolutely, about how to use commas. We have a couple of them up there, so thanks for sharing that. I just saw that comment at the end. Okay, let's see. Who's after Moni here? Lots of great questions today. Lots of great questions. Okay. Maksud is asking a good one. It kind of ties in with what David asked earlier. So Maksud is asking, what's best to do 3 days before the exam? Maksud, get good sleep, eat healthy, so you have good metabolism, you feel comfortable, your body is functioning at its best. Maybe go for some nice walks, get lots of fresh air, go for a swim at the local pool if you can. Do some stretching because you're going to be sitting for quite some time in the exam, obviously, and you can't move around like you might be able to in the office. So pay attention to your physical preparedness the week or the 3 days leading up to your exam. Do 1 or 2 timed practice exams, full practice exams, all the way, listening, reading, writing, speaking. So all of them together. Spend 3 hours, okay? Do the full practice exam in one sit, really get a feel for it. So I recommend doing that. And try to use as much English in your day-to-day speaking. Tell people around you, hey, my exam is in 3 days. I've been working really hard for the past year to get ready for this exam. I also paid a small fortune to sit this test. It's also going to have a huge effect on my future. So please speak English with me as much as possible. I really need to stay focused here. So do that, but don't burn yourself out. So don't overdo it where you basically walk into the exam brain dead, okay? So moderation is a very important word here, okay? And both physical and mental preparedness are very important, okay? It can have a big effect on your score. All right. Good job, everyone, with the questions today. Hopefully, I was able to clear up some points. If I didn't get to your question, again, remember, you can send it to me by email, and I will always happily respond. You can also share your question on the forum on the website, okay? And check out the blogs because you might find your answer there as well. So check out the blogs on the website, share your questions on the forums on the website because other students might be able to answer as well. Like Carolina yesterday said that in the computer-based practice exam, you have 3 minutes after the listening to check your answers. So not 10 minutes like in the paper-based exam, okay? So other students are often even more up to speed than I am because they just sat their exam yesterday or last week, like Hassan. I bet Hassan has a lot of really good insights on how the exam works in his neck of the woods, okay? All right, Pavan, you're very, very welcome. Abhishek, you're welcome. David, my pleasure. Again, for everybody watching, join us, aehelp.com, glshelp.com. Check out those premium packages. It's worth investing a few dollars. You're welcome, Yarabisha. If you have a question, let me know. Coming up in 30 minutes, speaking part 2 cue card. I got a good one for you today to end this week. Hopefully I will see you there. Have a nice break. Bye for now.